showing up. We have a quorum present, so we call the meeting to order. First item of business would be a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Mr. Miller, could you do that for us,
Sure.
please?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, again, we just thank you so much for this wonderful day. Just praise you for the mighty God you are. Just thank you that your ways are higher than ours, Lord. Just help us to seek you in all that we do and say. And just thank you for allowing us to be here and benefit the community, Father. Just help us, just direct us in the decisions that need to be made, and just let us honor you in all that we do and say. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item of business is the administering the oath to Mr. Adam Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
Hello.
I'm going to administer the oath of office. If you would repeat after me. I, Adam Anderson,
I, Adam Anderson,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma
and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma
and the Charter of the City of Pryor Creek, Oklahoma,
and the Charter of the City of Pryor Creek, Oklahoma,
that I will not knowingly receive, directly or indirectly, any money or other valuable thing for the performance or non-performance of any act or duty pertaining to my office,
other than the compensation allowed by law.
I further swear or affirm
I further swear or affirm
that I will faithfully discharge my duties as Pryor Economic Development Trust Authority, Seat 6,
as Pryor Economic Development Authority, Seat 6,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Thank you, sir. Please sign right there.
There you go.
A hysteric moment. Sacred. Next item of business, welcome aboard, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Approval of the minutes from the January 10th, 2022 meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes in January.
I second it.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any questions or discussion? I didn't have you take a roll to start, but if you take a roll now for the vote.
Durr,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson.
Would this be correct to abstain? Abstain.
You can do whatever you want to do.
Zordahl.
Yes. I don't know that we have any petitions from the audience because I really don't see any audience. That would bring us to, I have asked Dr. Mueller to come, and I know many of us have already heard the presentation. I thought it would be important to come here, to come and visit with us about the upcoming bond issue that we have coming with our schools on April 5th. So Dr. Mueller, pleasure to have you back.
Yes, and thank you for inviting me to talk today. As I know, a couple of you have had the chance to see this presentation before. This is kind of a modified a bit, but we'll have some of the same information if you've heard the talks that I've given earlier in the month about the bond issue. But hopefully this will, in this context, maybe you have some different questions or have the opportunity to hear something a little bit differently. So in thinking about the bond proposal, I want to call your attention to the date of the election. So it is April 5th, 2022, which is coming up much more quickly than it was when I first started talking about this presentation. So I encourage you to go out and vote on that date in April. And when I think about the bond issue, one of the things that's really important for context is that this is truly the culminating piece of a vision that was set out back in 2009, when Dr. Raleigh and the Board of Education at that time really sat down and looked at how can the face of Pryor Public Schools really be changed and updated so that our students have the kind of facilities that, quite frankly, many other districts in the state take for granted. So we have been on a path since 2009 toward that goal. And if you look at the slide, you can see some of the key projects in each one of those bond issues. It was essentially about every 3-year process. Last year, during the midst of being back in school during a pandemic, the board and superintendent decided not to go out for a bond election in that year, which puts us in a 4-year cycle at this point. But you can see some of the key pieces with the completion of the Early Childhood Center, really a completely rebuild of Roosevelt Elementary that eventually tore down the old building. We have the new Roosevelt Elementary, and I'm just hitting some of the highlights pieces. The renovation of Washington Elementary to become the new Education Service Center, the purchase of land for a very reasonable amount. I don't believe that was through the bond issue. Across the street from the high school allowed for some new facilities in that area. So that's when we were looking at building the ag facility, the transportation facility on that property across from the high school. Then we also, at the high school, the significant addition of the Freshman Academy wing on the high school and the enclosure there between the high school and the Abra Center, looking at additions at the junior high, storm shelter at Lincoln, the media center addition at Jefferson, softball and baseball, and all along there, technology and textbooks and other pieces that the district needs to operate from year to year. So lots of things that happen all in phases. And then in this school year, we begin looking at what are the next pieces that we need to be sure that we include in the bond election for this year. All right, so just to go over the proposed projects, and this is, we begin with soliciting ideas and things that people would like to have, and then we narrow it down so that we can come into range of what would be a responsible proposal to take out to the public. So all the proposed projects really do span across grade levels and campus sites and different parts of the district. The renovations for Jefferson and Lincoln Elementaries. I mentioned that Roosevelt, of course, is a very new building overall, so we're not looking at renovations at that site, but we are finishing up in this proposal the renovations at both Lincoln and Jefferson. Jefferson, interior-wise, is complete with those renovations, but still needs a new roof and new windows in that building. And then Lincoln still has a couple of hallways where the classrooms themselves and the restrooms have not been renovated. So this includes those interior renovations as well as roof and windows at Lincoln. The middle school piece is really, the middle school and the maintenance facility, which are on that next line, those go hand in hand. The middle school in the primary building, we would be raising the media center, which is that sunken kind of design that was popular a while back, but maybe has fallen out of popularity. We would be raising that up to level with the rest of the building and renovating that space into some additional classrooms, as well as a teacher lounge meeting space and some new restrooms. We have found at the middle school that since the addition of the new wing, their restroom space is a little tight. So this was one of the things that they were very interested in looking at a renovation and adding some new restrooms. To replace the media center then with that space that has been reconfigured, we would add on a new media center at the end of that building on some of the playground space that's there right across the street from the First Baptist Church. And that would mirror the existing wing, so it looks nice in the design as far as it really looks like there were originally 2 equal wings built. Once that has taken place, Another way to add space to the middle school would be to take in the current maintenance building and warehouse space. So this is the proposal to build a new maintenance facility, again, on that property across from the high school, very near the transportation center there. And with that maintenance space, we would of course have the places for maintenance itself, but also include storage for each of the school sites. I read the article in the paper today highlighted people's excitement about storage, and that is very accurate. The sites have all been excited about that possibility of having a place there at maintenance to store some of the things that they don't need all the time at their sites. It would free up space for them to use other than storage at the site level. Then the maintenance and warehouse space would be reconfigured and renovated into some additional classroom space for our STEM lab. We currently don't have a STEM lab at the middle school because of space constraints. It would also be a home for the woodshop program, and we would also have gifted and talented space and classrooms out there. So that would add several more classroom options at the middle school, and then also space for our IT department. So currently the IT department is housed at the Education Service Center. This would free up space there, as well as provide a really convenient place to receive all of the IT kinds of things that we get. When Chromebooks come in for all of the students, that is a really tight fit for our delivery spaces in the current configuration. So this would be a great opportunity for them to have some dedicated space as well. This is just some pictures of what that might look like. So on the left, that is a picture of the end of the building where that media center addition would be, and then on the right is what it might look like when the current maintenance building is renovated. And that is the proposed floor plan for the new maintenance building. You can see all of the gray pieces along the edge are those storage sites that I mentioned, as well as food storage area there for child nutrition. And then the purple area is more of the maintenance pieces, and purple and red are all the maintenance pieces. All right, thank you. The next phase is shifting over then to the high school. The high school itself on the main campus, the current practice gym is really not in great shape. In fact, actually, as Dr. Raleigh, I had an opportunity to walk the district with him during the transition, and he said, that practice gym needs to be addressed. So that was one of his parting comments about facilities to me. So we would propose tearing that existing gym down, then building a new gym that would also serve as a safe room. We do have a safe room currently at the high school campus. It's in the Freshman Academy addition in the band room. So we have space on that end of the campus, but not a safe room on the other end. This would allow us during the day to assign students to whichever safe room is closest to their classroom. It would also, in the evenings, which we know often that's when we have severe weather, that if we were having something in the Burdick Center would make for a very easy transition into that safe room. So this would also then propose a pom and cheer room that would be located right around that new practice gym, and enclosing all of the space between the Burdick, the high school, and those two new buildings. So it would be very similar to what was done on the other side of the campus, where the Avra had been freestanding and now it's enclosed, very similar that way. So everything would be under roof at the high school. Our goal also would be to include a new wrestling room. That is one of the projects that was very much desired, but as we were looking at costs, perhaps not feasible in this particular phase. We will bid that as an alternate, so depending on how prices come in, it's possible that we may be able to do that as well. Also on the athletic improvements, and this is the one I get the most questions about, is the proposal for a new stadium. And really the impetus for talking about this is the fact that the existing home stands, those concrete stands, were constructed. I did my research and talked with Dr. Burdick, and he told me about 1955. So that helps me get a feel for the age of the stands. they are in a state that essentially they have to be replaced or removed in some way. So when we started looking at that, when you do that level of, quote, renovation, then you're also in a position where you have to bring the rest of the stadium up to code. So we are looking not just at the cost of removing those concrete stands and replacing them, but also a lot of other things that would have to be done then that would trigger, including, I know a lot of people are concerned about parking already at the stadium. Bringing that into code would actually reduce the amount of parking we would have there. It would also, if we were to do the field house that's been proposed as well, would take out those band stands that are down at the end, which would reduce the overall seating capacity. So looking at the cost estimates of both proposals, it really was not nearly as much difference as you would expect from the proposal to renovate the existing stadium and the proposal to build a new stadium. And when you add in the fact that we have the land across the street from the high school that we could build the new stadium on, which would mean that kids were no longer driving down a major highway across railroad tracks to get to practice when both the soccer teams and the football team do practice out there periodically. So that was really a driving factor in making that decision to move forward with the proposal for the new stadium. Also at the time when the renovations around the concession stand and the bathrooms that were made, in one of those phases earlier on in the bond plan that we showed, we didn't own that land across the street from the high school. So I think that, I can't tell you for sure, but I think that had that land been owned at that time, the board and superintendent might have made a different decision with how they allocated money that way. But we did really look at this carefully and believe that the new stadium proposal is the most fiscally responsible way to go. And it will include field house as well as the stadium in this proposal. Yes?
The locker rooms at the existing football field have been there a long time, but are still functional.
Right.
I guess whatever use we end up making of the field, they would just be rolled into
Correct.
that.
Yes. So we would still want to use as much as possible of that. We will have to tear down those stands.
Sure.
Even if we are repurposing. One of the things that the architect has suggested is doing a flip and using the existing visitor side stands as the new home side, which could then make that facility available for other purposes, whether that's, sometimes scheduling gets tight, whether it's games below varsity or youth league games. We certainly want everyone to have a chance to play on the new field, including our youth league teams. So that is a good reason as well with the turf that we could get more use out of the new stadium.
But the locker rooms there by the track,
Yes.
I guess the football team would be exiting
Yes.
that, so
right.
could that be
So,
repurposed
yes.
to a wrestling wrestling room?
Right, it does. It's not big enough, and we did look at that. That was one of the things that we looked at around, how can we best utilize our space? So we asked the architects to look at, could that be repurposed for wrestling, and it's not quite large enough, but we will repurpose it for other teams. So that space will not go to use for sure. It's good prime space.
Yeah.
All right, so this shows the map that is the proposal. So all the green is just the hallway space, the enclosure space. And the rectangular blue box that is closest to the wall over here would be the practice gym. Up at the top is the proposed palm and cheer room, and then the area that's over on the closest to you all is the proposed wrestling space. And then this is a mock-up of the football field with the concessions on both sides and restrooms and those pieces.
When you plan a football field like that, how do you estimate parking, and will the city require you to have
Yes.
X number of parking spaces based on your
Yes,
stadium
my
space?
understanding, and Mr. Sorrell can correct me if my memory is wrong, that you have to have one parking space for every 2.5 seats, I believe is how they figure it.
Something like
Yes.
that.
So there is a city code.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a substantially
Yes.
large parking area.
There will be. So there will be about 100 more parking spaces at the actual football stadium than there is available at the current stadium. That includes the Baja space.
Sure.
So there would be 100 more spaces, and then, of course, with the location right across from the high school, we have the overflow option as well.
So in this, is there any proposal, or does it include a track around the football
It
field, or
does-
will those stay two separate?
They will stay
venues?
separate.
Okay.
And then if you'll go ahead, this is the field house proposal right now that includes space for the football team, both soccer teams, team room meeting areas, and hospitality space. This base bid, just as you were asking about facilities, does not include the weight room facility or a turf facility in this new field house. That would be, again, alternate pieces, but part of it is because we do have the facilities on the high school campus.
You said weight room or what?
Like the turf room where they have the indoor turf, which
Oh, I
we
see.
already have it
Like an indoor
across
practice, yeah.
the street as well. So
I
we're,
saw a spirited game of cornhole going on in there the other day.
okay. So it's clearly a multi-purpose facility.
Yes, not just football.
So our bid that would go out with as the base bid does not include those spaces. We wouldn't to duplicate, but it is possible that we would either, depending on how the bid day goes, be able to do something a little bit more, or in the future in a phase 2 add-on. And there is a design plan for that. Okay, then again, support pieces for our ongoing operations are also really important. So we did build in some funds for textbooks. This would not all be spent in 1 year. This would be spread over the course of the bond. We have an adoption every year. I used to say all the time that the state of Oklahoma funded about half of what it costs districts to actually do a textbook adoption. They did substantially increase textbook funding this past year, so I'd say we're up to about 75% at this point. So it is much better than it was in the past, but we still have needs that we need to supplement the funds that we receive from the state. District technology are things like those Chromebooks, the interactive whiteboards in our classrooms, any kind of subscriptions for all the things that make those tools work. So that is something that we're continuing to want to be sure that our students have the most up-to-date tools, as well as our teachers have what they need to use those tools well.
If we have special ed students that are nonverbal, do we buy talkers for them?
Yes, so assistive technology could fall into this. A lot of times we do that out of our general fund purchases, but yes, so any kind of assistive communication devices or other assistive technology that students need to learn is our responsibility to provide. And then band instruments is another piece that we have added on with talking with the band, just on what Mr. Speakman has an idea, of course, of what his replacement timeline is for those bigger instruments and things that you wouldn't just rent out and purchase your own tuba or drum set or those kinds of things. So this helps us keep those band instruments up to date. And then while I wish this were free and people did it out of the goodness of their heart, there are borrowing costs associated, so that gets rolled into the total price as well. But the next slide, I believe, is our key slide. Yes, it is. All right, so what everyone wants to know, of course, is how is this going to affect the tax rate here in Pryor. So this is a slide that shows what the estimated or target millage rate, which is in blue, and then for the years that we already know, what the actual millage rate ended up being. So you can see that historically, even though we ask our bond consultant to be pretty conservative anyway on estimating these, we have traditionally come in lower in the actual millage rate than what was projected. So you can see with this bond issue included, the rest of the blue lines are the projected rates, and it keeps our property tax, school taxes, stable across the life of this bond. So I can confidently say we do not expect that this will raise citizens' taxes in order to pass this bond issue. You get some variation with things like the years where it's particularly low were years that the valuation at Google grew more heavily than what was expected, and that drops down the millage rate, but it has bounced back up to closer to what was anticipated in these past couple of years, and we believe it will be pretty stable moving forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
What's the bond life?
13 years. It's a 13-year series.
So the one that was done in 2009 when we started all this has expired?
It's paid out, yes. And so is 2012. So we have the 2015 and the 2018 still on the books.
So y'all built that concession stand between the track and the new baseball facility. What's the intent for that?
Right. So as far as...
Well, I've seen preliminary plans was, indoor football facility at the football field.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes,
Yeah, they got that big concession building.
Yes. So that is, I was trying to place exactly which one we were talking about. So yes, the idea there was that would eventually be expanded and be an indoor practice facility, a larger one for football or other sports. It could even be band. Unfortunately, just like so many other things, the price that we get for estimates on what that would cost continues to rise. And it was not one that we could afford to include in this bond issue without me being able to come here and say that's going to be an increase in taxes, which is not what we are looking to do. So that was a project that was considered but not included in the bond issue. And that actually brings me to another good point I wanted to make. So another thing I've heard from a few people is, well, this seems really heavy on athletics. But what I like to remind them is about that history, exactly what you all talked about from 2009 on. So all of the academic pieces, the fine arts pieces, we've certainly done some athletics, but we left intentionally the athletics towards the end after the other needs were taken care of. So that's why here at the end, yes, it does seem a little heavier on athletics, but there were other athletic projects that were proposed that we weren't able to include.
Mr. Chairman, you mind if I ask a question? I'm just curious, apart from staff, but just physical capacity, where are we with the population? If we get all this done, are we at 60%, 80%? How much room do we have?
Yeah.
For additional
So
students?
we have quite a bit of room at the high school level, not as much room at the elementary and middle school level. So that's another, I appreciate you asking that question. One of the other things we looked at in this bond planning was working with our bond consultant to say, all right, if we do have the anticipated growth that people are talking about, how can we be sure that we can afford to also do a new school in the next 3 to 5 year period of time? And so in the planning, that has been projected so that we could come back in that time period and build a new school. It depends. We have not decided on what that new school would be, whether that would be an elementary school or a reconfiguration of some of our secondary sites so that we could have more space at the elementary level. But we do foresee, if the growth that has been projected occurs, that within that time period we likely would need a new campus.
And we've purchased land
Yes.
for that purpose.
Thank you. Yes. So we have purchased the land just on the other side of there's the high school, there's the apartment complex. We purchased the land on the side, right on the other side of that apartment complex for a new school site. We are absolutely planning and anticipating for that growth.
That land is right outside city limits
So,
It is right now.
right now.
I'm assuming the city won't have a problem bringing it in when we need that. So,
I mean, I've got PSO landlocked. They can't get there, but of course, for me to serve electric, it has to be
Yeah,
annexed.
So yes, and in the interim, we do have ways that we could address adding some students at different elementary sites. And of course, the middle school, that's another reason that we're adding some classroom space at the middle school.
With existing with this, what kind of capacity room do we have? Do you
Is-
know?
I don't know off the top of my head a specific capacity number. Other questions?
I will say, in addition to your statement about athletics being, bigger in this bond than in the past, one thing that I think is important to note is football never has a home game in Pryor. It's an away game for every single game. Soccer has never had locker rooms or an area they could call them their own. And I think that's important to call out that this is doing those pieces that need to be done. And I think the school board has done a great job of getting it to this point. I worked in that concession stand at the football field, and it's a great facility, but everything around it is dated and hard, and even though that is a fairly new facility, it is, for the concessions, it's already getting to its end of its useful life just because of the constraints of everything around it. So.
And we could use also, one of the things we've discussed with in the construction process, the possibility of using some of the equipment from that existing, that is in good shape in the new piece to save some funds as well.
Did I hear you say you're coming out of retirement, Adam?
I am back for soccer.
Oh, you are? Okay.
But that's a good point. And, when we did that at the football field, as Dr. Muller pointed out, we did not own the property across the street. And we felt, because if we all remember, and Adam remembers better than anybody, what that concession stand was like. I mean, you almost, you were looking for rodents as you were
Some
trying.
raccoons lost their
Yeah,
home.
and the restrooms were, I mean, Don used to say, gee, that'd be a good place to send somebody for detention if you were really mad at them. So we had to clean that part up to even make the football field usable, and that's essentially all we did, was make it usable. But we knew then there was a problem with the stands, so.
And all of the equipment that was bought at that time was made movable
Right,
in the event that anything, to use it at other sites.
right.
And you're right about soccer. My daughters still, always grew up, they never had a soccer, specific locker area for soccer. And this provides
It
that.
does.
Yeah. One of the former coaches said every, like you said, Adam, every game is an away game. I mean, you gotta load up all the equipment in the trailer and haul it over there. You can't just, so anyway, I think it's a good deal.
All right.
Other questions?
If this passes, when are we looking to start moving dirt?
So if it passes, we would sell the bonds in the summer, and then, of course, the really intense planning would begin. So we would see, obviously, projects beginning next school year. We'll have to phase it out on exactly which order, but. All right, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
And
Thank you.
I just
Good
have,
work.
I don't want to fill her calendar more than it probably is, but obviously she's the road show right now, and doing a really good job at it.
Yes.
If there is any suggestions or any groups that you are aware of where she could come and visit, I'm sure she'd be
I am.
glad to entertain that. And I don't know, perhaps, Hope or somebody, or I don't know, Jenny, you might have some ideas of people or groups to talk to. And we're getting to the point where we're starting to hit people 2 or 3 times, but there's still people out there who haven't heard this. And I think, quite frankly, the more they hear it, the better it is. So if you all simply let Dr. Muller know that, she'll be happy to get him on the
There
calendar.
I am, yes. So there's my information. I am happy to do that. I do appreciate the paper. They're doing a series, of articles on each kind of group of projects. So I think that'll help get word out as well. But just let me know if you have some other ideas for who I can talk to. I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Next item on the agenda is, I don't think we have anybody here from the chamber, unless Dennis is now joined. Report from Pryor Main Street.
Okay, so there's been a lot that has happened since the last time we met. So I have some notes on my phone to keep me on track of what's kind of went down since January. Is that when the last time that we met? So this has been the busiest start of the year we've ever had at Main Street, so which is super exciting. We were able to have an assistant hired on, so getting her kind of acclimated to just day-to-day things within our organization. That's kind of added to that. We did finalize the calendar, and I printed them off. They're 2 pages, so if you take the first 2 and then pass the rest on. That's going to include everything from community events. It's basically everything that the community can be involved in, or things like board meetings and things like that aren't mentioned on there, but it gives you just a rundown of opportunities you can get involved with Pryor Main Street. One of the things that's coming up quick is we've been working with Jack Hardy with a tornado monument. So this is the 80th year of the tornado that basically took out a lot of downtown and made it why it's some buildings are single story, and a lot of the opportunity of upper floor housing we don't necessarily have because of this tornado. So we've been working on a monument, and we've secured a location for that, and that's going to be on the corner of the newly renovated library. So it's going to be about 6 foot tall, so about my height, and it's going to have the names of those who have died, and we're working with Terry Lamar to get that figured out and accurate, and then there'll be a little bit, hopefully there'll be a seating area around it, and that's going to come in April. And then on top of that, we're supposed to have the Great American Cleanup. That's something that happens nationally, but with weather, we had to reschedule it for April 2nd. We also work with the Thunderbird Challenge program to be able to clean up downtown. So that's cleaning, that's facade improvements, that's painting, just different things like that. The Economic Vitality Committee, and Scott is actually the chair of that for us. He is planning a building owner roundtable, so something that's not necessarily the tenants, but just building owners of downtown can come together and see how they can support this mission as a whole. I think he plans to have that sometime in April. And then also another thing that's really exciting, April 5th, we were excited to come to the state capitol, and we're gonna set up a table and be able to showcase what we're doing in downtown Pryor. And there's a few awards that's gonna be handed out then that we're eligible for, and that have to do with tracking of public and private reinvestment dollars of our downtown district. And so this is the year that we should get some recognition for that. And then we also have some facade grants that are in the process. So last year we were able to grant 4 facade projects through our our organization, and this year we have 4 that are already applying. So we've been able to budget for that, and people are already submitting those. And then an update, you mentioned earlier before the meeting started, you were curious about where the city was as far as repainting crosswalks. And so I talked to Buddy about that, and that kind of falls in line with the grant that we've been doing. He said that they would definitely get on it, and that he offered the numbers of repainting the crosswalk specifically in the area that we're applying the grant. And so that's something that's on his radar, and you might be able to get with him for more accurate dating as far as when he plans to do the rest of it. But the Tset grant location is what we spoke about. And then as far as the parking issue that we talked about however long in January, so we were able to host a retreat for our board, and that's where we were able to introduce the idea of what we were going to try and promote. And then we were able to create a letter, and we were able to take every single business that's within the district and separate them into where walking distance is with their building compared to a public parking lot. We haven't been able to get to every business. It's kind of a slow process because it's a lot of education and communication and changing a culture. And so we've been able to first target some of our partners, and then we're going to branch off, and that's something that's ongoing. And one of the weeks that we had planned to walk and do that was the week that the ice came, and so that's where we stand with that. And then one of the biggest updates, the Tset grant for partial funding of phase 1 is actually due tomorrow, and Ariana and I have been working on that. It seems like constantly the last few weeks. As far as community contributions, we've raised a little over $100,000 to be able to put up for our matching piece, and they matched that 1-to-1, so we're hoping we're gonna be able to get a little over $200,000 for, phase 1, and our focuses on that are gonna be kind of more of comfortability and safety and kind of making it more of a walkable environment. So, you know, we're gonna do the pedestrian crossways and just different areas like that equal that amount. And so once we get that submitted, you won't hear from me for a while because I'm taking some time off. But I'm super excited about it and thankful for the partnerships we've had in the community to be able to raise that matching, including a brick fundraiser. So we invited the community to be able to purchase a brick paver and put their name on it, and we've raised over $15,000 so far in that. We've only promoted that a few weeks, so it's been awesome. So if you have any questions for me, I know that was kind of a lot, but I wanted to be quick. Nope.
I have, just
Okay.
want to make a
Yes.
comment. I want to just say how great Jenny has been doing to get all of the matching fund. I want to thank MUB because Jared got us a letter in quick timing for that match. And I can say it's official now. Larry asked us to present this, but I was like, well, maybe let's wait till it's official. But we officially did get a letter of support from Cherokee Nation, and they are going to contribute over $50,000 to this project. And so we find out May 5th for that grant. So we're super, super excited about it. And just note that we were planning on going after the whole full phase 1, but because of that 1-to-1 match in the quick timeline, we were only able to get that the matching dollars that Jenny mentioned. So just FYI, that's why it went from all of phase 1 to just part of phase 1, but we're hopeful that this will be the catalyst to help us out in future grant applications, knowing that at least $200,000 of this project is completed. So we're super excited about that. But I do have a question because I know that the crosswalks for sure are included in that matching part, that Buddy got you those numbers, but I know that the striping of the parking lot is not included in that. And so I was just curious, and this may not be a question for you, Jenny, it may be a question for Mayor who isn't here, but maybe someone here can tell us so when we do recommend that the council do something, did that get recommended to the council? I realize that I should have probably looked back at council meetings to see, but I'm just curious if there's a way that we could, as we request that something gets requested to the council, if that could be like a quick report back to us of where that is, if that's possible at all. And that's just one example, so.
Can do that. I'll double check on that and see if that's something that went to them or not.
Awesome,
But
thank you,
yes,
Darla.
I can be the
You're the best.
person.
Thank you so much.
You are.
No pressure.
Along those lines, possibly what we need to consider maybe next time is maybe we need to name a liaison or two from this trust, that when we do have something to recommend, they carry it to the council. And so
I
we have a
nominate
person.
Ariana.
We were,
Oh, shit.
Scott, did you second that?
I second
You
that.
second?
you're out of order because it's not on the agenda.
Oh, put that on next month.
So, but that's probably something to consider. I think that's extremely, also, we appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
Do you mind if you come and report to us? It just seemed best, I know Adam had talked about this, that we have that continual contact and relationship.
Yeah.
So, one, not just if there's anything we can do to help, or anything we need to be doing and assisting in that too. So if you don't mind,
Yeah.
we'd love to have you stay on our agendas and continue to give us updates.
Yeah, I would love to. I think it's important. I think not a lot of people know the full scope of what we do. And so I think it's a good thing to be able to communicate that. So, yeah.
Okay, well, we appreciate
Yeah,
that. Well,
thank
you'll stay on our agenda
What
then.
was the total of phase 1? Had you been able to do the entire thing?
It was about 800,000+.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like 836 or something
Yeah.
thousand.
Sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the grant that we're going after is, you can apply for up to 350,000, but with that 1-to-1 match. So we wouldn't have been able to apply for the full. It would have been about 700,000 that we could have applied for. But we really feel like it's a blessing in disguise because it's a competitive grant that they're only going to award 4 maximum awards. And so we're hopeful, since this is a lower ask, that we have greater opportunity to receive it. So
And you said we should know by when?
May 5th.
And the TAP grants have not been opened
That
yet.
hasn't been released. In an ideal world, we would be able to get granted this. And I know we had approved, or council had approved, that 140 from the downtown fund, but if we're awarded this, we believe this could be considered our matching contribution for that
Toward
grant.
the
So then that's less money that's coming out of that account. So it's all getting stacked up and planned to hopefully come to fruition this year, if not a little bit longer, but
Yeah, great work, Jenny.
no, thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have the mayor present. Jared, do you have anything, any updates?
Yes, I do. I don't know if you read the paper this past weekend, but I know my assistant had a little report at my last board meeting about material, transformers, getting stuff in, which was kind of the reason why I'm asking when you want to start, because a year or two ago, we were ordering transformers and getting them within 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. And the smallest transformer, 25 kVA pad mount, serves 2 homes. Used to cost me $1,000 to $1,500. Now it's $12 grand, $11,000, $12 grand, and it takes me 60 to 80 weeks to get it. So I try to keep 3 to 5 transformers of each size in stock, but that's for my existing customers. I do know we have some stuff that I've ordered some transformers for some new developments, but it would really be beneficial if your engineers get with me so I can determine, we can get some sizing, some loadings of gas, water, and electric, so I can be able to, you're not waiting on me. Just FYI.
So in the meantime, get all the MUB employees out to vote yes.
Yeah, oh yeah. And just as far as economic development, there is a lot of stuff going on in this town that we can't talk about, but tomorrow night on the council meeting, there's a subdivision requesting to be approved, which has already been approved by P&Z, I believe, which is a 52 lot subdivision north of town, off of North Elliott, right past Roosevelt, so.
Awesome.
More students for Roosevelt.
That concludes my report.
I don't think we have any unforeseeable business. So the next time, again, if we could include, continue to include the chamber, if you would.
Absolutely.
Also give us an agenda item to talk about a liaison to the council, so
Okay.
we can get that officially done. And maybe an agenda item to, hopefully the mayor should be back, and
Yeah.
we can probably do it on his updates, just have a general discussion with, we have a new member, and a general discussion again of kind of where this trust thinks it should be going.
Fred, I should have mentioned to you, I have something unforeseeable. Is it okay if I bring it up real quick?
Sure.
So, in working with Jenny and a grant in Locust Grove with Cherokee Nation, trying to figure out the match money, we've been working and talking closely with tribal counselor Danny Callison, and he mentioned to us that there are several health and wellness projects in Pryor, such as we all know, the softball, baseball, soccer fields, the rec center project, the streetscape project, the trails projects. There's so many projects going on, and with ARPA money coming down the pike, they want to make sure that the city of Pryor is all on one page for those projects. And so I would like to ask you guys how we should approach that. I was able to create this super document that I'm geekily excited about. But basically just shares what project that is and how they plan to get the money, whether that's through matching funds, fundraiser, grants, whatever. But that way there is a one document that shows all these prior projects, and this is going to be the ask from Cherokee Nation as a whole. And so my question to you all is, do we want to divide and conquer approaching those entities, and I can take one entity and so that you guys can each take one? Or do we want to invite them back to present basically what we need to know is what their budget is? And for example, let me use Main Street as an example. That's a 7-phase project. However, we know we're gonna have to take this one bite at a time. So right now in the document, it lists partial funding of phase 1. And that's the type of information we need to know from each of these entities. So for example, if softball field comes in and says, our total project number is, and this is just an example, $1 million, well, what's the first bite that they're gonna go after? What's that phase, and how much money do they already have in matching, and such and so forth. So with that said, shall we divide and conquer, and I can share that document with you so you know what to ask them? Or do we want to have them come back to present those numbers so that we're all on the same page to what we're gonna ask Cherokee Nation? And in addition to that, what the city of Pryor is gonna commit to. Because obviously, we do have some funds available, I imagine, so.
And this is to obtain what from the Cherokee Nation?
They want to make sure that the city of Pryor is all on the same page as far as how much money is the city going to ask from Cherokee Nation. And right now, they're talking to them each as individuals. And so they basically want us to come together to say, we understand what the needs are for each entity. This is how we're going to go after it with these specific phases. And this is how much we hope Cherokee Nation can contribute.
Does Cherokee Nation have a max that they're looking at per city, or?
There's not a max, I haven't been told, but I think that's kind of why he wants the document, is because there's so many asks happening that he's trying to think in his mind, how can I fairly distribute this out to each entity, especially since a lot of the asks are coming from Pryor.
So when we talk to these groups, how do we know how much to ask them, you know?
So we're basically talking about the same group of people that we had a year and a half come and talk to us.
Right.
It would seem if the time frame works, that would be something to do an agenda item and have those people come back so we can see where they're at. The mayor would be available to also kind of give an indication where the city would be at and to gather that information in one place. It also probably would be helpful for these others to hear where the other is at.
Right.
I mean, you know, if you're dealing with them one-on-one, it's kind of like, well, what, you know, when they understand this is gonna get spread out, it would probably help. I personally, I don't have mind doing this in an agenda item and dealing with it here and inviting those people back.
I
Is
think
there a
that's great.
document that they have put together that says this is what they're looking to fund, the type of activities?
So
or-
there actually, what I've learned about Cherokee Nation and working with these grants is there are different funds. So there's gonna be a health and wellness fund. There's also an infrastructure fund, a transportation fund. There's several funds that these projects could probably get some of the money from, maybe different pots, or maybe it's only the health and wellness fund. But that's why we need to come together to figure out, basically, I wanna be able to give a full package to Cherokee Nation to say, this is the full asking amount of what the projects are. And then I'm gonna give that document to Cherokee Nation, and they're gonna come back and say, well, we know this project can come out of the health and wellness, this one could come out of a little bit health and wellness and infrastructure, you know? So that way we're able to maximize, but that way it's all living in one document.
I guess what I'm asking though is, take soccer. If
Okay.
I go to soccer and say, what do you guys need?
Yeah,
That's a big question.
right.
Is there something that narrows it down from Cherokee Nation that says, you know, this is within our scope of what we'll fund, so some of that stuff can get moved out of the way completely?
Right, I
And
hear
it's
ya.
just, this is what we're looking for.
I think
Right,
a big question is how much money can you match?
right, exactly.
I mean, that's the big question.
Yeah, well, I do know that they're still ironing out all the details as far as how the health and wellness funds are gonna work. So all of that's brand new as far as they don't know how much money is gonna be available yet. But
Okay.
that's why it would be nice to, so when they come in and say, let's say soccer says we need $1 million, we need to recommend to them, okay, what of that $1 million are you gonna go after first?
I mean, how much money they got? I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, that's the whole question. How much
Right.
money do you have to match
Yes.
to get money from the nation?
Yes, the nation
And
and
have an
hopefully
idea
the
what's
city.
available from the city.
Exactly,
Right. So,
And I think the only way you start answering that is get everybody together.
yeah.
trust me, if there's free money, they'll show up.
Yeah,
Yeah, possibly.
and this
And
isn't
if
by,
there's not, then we've done our part.
yeah, I do want to clarify, it's not guaranteed that there's free money, but it's looking like there probably will be. So let's get a plan ready so that we're prepared to ask formally instead of all over the place scattered.
I think that would be a good thing to kind of consolidate and for the EDTA to be involved with.
So
trying to get
we
that
need to
done.
know what groups need to be invited, and we need an agenda item.
Yeah.
So if you get with her, and then we could review that. But I think it sounds like it's safely the same kind of groups that we had come that
Yeah.
one time, a year and a half. ago,
Well,
something
right,
like
I
that.
can look back and see who we had.
It is the same group. However, the two that are top of mind that I don't think were present there were the Rec Center and then the Trails Alliance. Because there are a couple of pieces, obviously Pryor has implemented their part of the Trails project. However, there are a couple pieces that were not finished, and so those need to be talked about as well. So the Trails Alliance needs to be included as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, we're mixing City of Pryor entities like the rec center with non-City of Pryor entities. I don't know that the EDTA is necessarily the lead sled dog for either of those entities. We can certainly, I think, as Fred has said several times, we can facilitate collaboration, but in terms of us racking and stacking priorities, I don't see us doing that. I don't see us necessarily being able to, not the right word, but discriminate between or differentiate between the Trails Alliance, the Rec Center, the Soccer Association, et cetera, as to who needs what or gets what. I think we can act as a leavening agent, perhaps, injecting a dose of reality into some of these, wish lists. But, yeah, I mean, I'm willing to devote time on an agenda to listen again and help facilitate that dialogue.
Yeah, we're
But-
not gonna determine who's in first and who's in second,
Right.
who's in fifth position.
And we're advocating something to Cherokee Nation
Right.
and
Right.
this list of priorities
But
necessarily.
I think we can help efficient, as Darrell point, help more efficiently gather the information so it can be presented. And I agree with him. I think that's what I see us doing, and I think Darrell just auditioned to be the liaison. to,
I second that.
To the Soccer Alliance?
No,
Oh,
Well, I totally agree, we shouldn't be coming up with the priorities, so, and that definitely is not my intention, so, but
but I think it would be nice to bring them back to show them at least, we're trying to help, we're trying to facilitate,
Right.
because we kind of sent them away last time with, there's nothing there.
right.
Okay, so, yeah, if you will help with the
Yep.
entities and get them invited and get the agenda item. Any other unforeseeable business?
I do have one, maybe not unforeseeable business, but question. So I know with that item, we just discussed how to get something on the agenda, but going forward, what is the process for getting things on the agenda or up for discussion other than just including an unforeseeable business and getting it
No,
kicked to the
that
next
is
month?
again, and then that's the discussion I want to have with the mayor, so we get that understanding and have that next time. So, and I wanted to give thoughts, so people have thoughts of things they want on the agenda. They know there's a time frame to get it presented. Quite frankly, with this group, if somebody has an idea of what they want on the agenda, I certainly don't know why it can't be run by the mayor and Darla, and that
Yeah.
it's gonna come to me, and we have plenty of time to approve that agenda. I want everybody to feel comfortable that they have the ability to suggest an agenda item.
And anytime you send anything to Mayor, go ahead and just CC me on it, and that way I can make sure he sees it. Because he gets so many emails, I can make sure nothing gets lost in the shuffle, and then we can coordinate together.
So I think that's what we're gonna do. That's an understanding before our next meeting. If somebody has an agenda item, make that recommendation, either send it to me, send it to the mayor, send it to Darla, but then also, and of all fairness, I'd like to have the discussion for sure of how we wanna handle the future when we have the mayor here.
Sure.
So, but in the meantime, if you have an agenda item for next time, other than what we've talked about, certainly bring it up, send that idea. Because I want everybody to have the freedom to feel, I have the ability to suggest an agenda item.
Absolutely.
Does that answer it?
Yes, sir.
If you send anything to me, I'll follow up on it and find out what we need to do. So I can't answer the question, but I can find an answer to the question. I can relay the question.
I can tell you Darla's my point of contact.
She's mine too.
Yeah.
I'm still feeling kind of bad because I can't get over, she keeps saying, well, those stadiums built in 1955, and so that was my birth year. And so I'm sitting here wondering, okay, anyway.
They're outdated, Fred.
Yeah.
It's outdated. Antiquated.
Anything else? I think we're to adjourn. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. I don't know. We need a roll call. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Were you the second?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all right.